Good evening. And first, let me apologize for the size of the room. This is a good opportunity for all of you to write to our president and say we need a bigger museum. Welcome to the Cornell Fine Arts Museum. I am so happy to see so many of you here tonight. And before I get to introduce tonight's speaker, I just want to ask you all if you can take a moment after the lecture and fill out the little comment cards. Your feedback is important to us for future programming. I also want to thank all of you in this room who are members of our museum. It is due to our members that we can provide all these programs free of charge, and keeping both our exhibitions and our programs free of charge is very important to us. And I want to welcome all of you who are students at Rollins or elsewhere. Very happy to see so many of you here, and I'm sorry some of you have to sit on the floor or in the next room. Other than our members, tonight's lecture is made possible by the Thomas P. Johnson hold on, I always forget this one, distinguished visiting scholar and artist at Rollins College. So I would like to thank Rollins for helping us bring tonight's speaker here. And it is indeed a pleasure for me to be able to introduce Patrick Martinez. Those of us who live here, literally or figuratively, have had the privilege to enjoy his exhibition, American Memorial, this entire summer. So it's really a great culmination of that experience to have the artist himself come and speak to us just a few days before closing. The exhibition closes on Sunday, if we're still open on Sunday with Irma coming to visit, but it is the last days of our exhibition, and so I encourage you, if you have time, to stop by again and see it one last time with a fresh perspective that Patrick will give us tonight. Patrick Martinez is a son of Los Angeles. He attended Pasadena College and then the Art Center College of Design, where he got a degree in art illustration in 2005. He's an artist, as you can see next door, who masters many media and many formats. And lately, he's been very busy indeed. He has been included in a number of exhibitions, among them one at LA Louvre and a solo exhibit at the Charlie James Galleries in Los Angeles. But I'm very happy and proud to say that this is his first solo museum exhibition, which I think will be followed quite quickly by others. And also proud that we now have 5 works by Patrick Martinez in our permanent collection. So without further ado, please help me welcome Patrick Martinez.
Hello. So I guess I just wanted to present. Obviously, you guys seen the work here. That's probably about a couple years worth of work, a year and a half. But I wanted to kind of investigate or present the work or the inspiration for the work, and where I am inspired from. A lot of people are kind of like, interested in the blue, kind of like the past stories, or what influences or inspires or informs the work, and I kind of wanted to go through that. I mean, and then show you like other works, like how it's kind of come to this is what I'm kind of trying to get to. So I'm going to be sharing, like, I guess, a lot of photography that I've taken, a lot of inspiration that I've kind of like gathered and presenting tonight. This is outside of my old studio in Lincoln Heights. I used to have a loft studio there, but this is typically what you find in LA streets during like Valentine's Day, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, things like that. And what people will do, they'll put up their makeshift tables and kind of sell these stuffed animals that they package themselves, like ready to go gifts. You'll just kind of pull up and purchase them real quick. And I always thought it was like kind of like a interesting installation, or just kind of how they would just kind of like use the space that they already, it was kind of like they have like a small section of like the front of in this case of a party supply store, and they'll just kind of like sell these things. So that's that. It'll all make sense later, I promise. This is the original Peachy Folder. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but this is where I reference the Peachy Folder art from, and I create based off of this. The first one that I did was in 2005, when I was still at Art Center. Actually, I was graduating, and it was inspired. Like the original one was a print. The first one that I created, it was a drawing, and then it turned into a print, a silkscreen print, only because I looked at this as a print. So back then in 2005, I wasn't really, I didn't have the ammo I needed today, like all these images that we see of police brutality, the videos, the still images. I didn't have any of that. I was having to make it up. I knew it was happening because it was happening to my friends. It's happened to me, my brother, family members. So I was doing generic versions of it, like, young person getting arrested, cop pointing a gun at a kid. It was about youth and authority when it first started. It was about being in school and getting harassed by like school police or cops after school or during school or whatever. That it happened when I was in high school, so I always thought it was weird, like, we're just going to school, like, what's the big deal, and it always felt different, so it felt strange. So that was the connection back in 2005. It evolved into what it is now, and I turned them into paintings. So I was talking to a group of students earlier, and the idea of creating a painting, it's more permanent that way. That's why I wanted to make them big, make them sizable, so that they are in your face and you can't really just kind of like pass it. You kind of have to acknowledge it. The colors are bright, and composition is there, and this is the format that I'm using. So this is why I'm using 3 different scenes in one painting, and then in this case, in the room next door, one of them's opened up, so you're getting the front and back, so that's 6 scenes, and that's the explanation behind the Peachy Folder. This is the first one that I did. It was 2005. That was 12 years ago, so it feels very rough to me, but this is the first silkscreen print that I did of it, and it was, like I said, very generic, and it took me, I did this 2005, I showed it a couple places, messed with it. It was probably 2006, 7 that I shelved it, the idea, for a while, and then I brought it back out like 2014, 15, because of all the images and all the content that I was kind of coming across. Eric Garner was the first kind of where I started tying it in. Like I said before, it was about youth and authority, but then in this image, I first saw it when, obviously the video first, and then I was looking at the stills, and the image of the detective choking Eric Garner was very disturbing, but I also noticed that he had a football jersey on, and he had like a number, so I don't know, I guess he was an undercover detective or whatever, so I kind of started there, and in this scene right here, the middle scene, it was kind of like a football player tackling another one, and that's what I replaced it with, was with Eric Garner. Felt like he was getting tackled, and as a football player. So funny, I just noticed, like, maybe like a couple of months ago, I don't know why the football player has the ball and he's tackling the dude that doesn't have the ball. It doesn't even make sense. So I was like looking at that I just kind of figured that out. I was like, why would he be tackling? The dude should probably have the ball. Walter Scott, running away from a police officer. It was kind of going back to the track scene at the bottom. So I started making these connections in the stuff that I was seeing. A lot of the youth that was getting, harassed or even shot. The portraits that I would paint and that I would be working with is portraits of their graduation photos, because they had just graduated. It would be summertime, and their parents or their loved ones would release these high-res photos of them in a graduation cap, gown, things like that. So I would love to take those, because they actually really are involved with like the school aspect of the Peachy Folder, and it ties into that. But it also shows how young some of these kids are. This is North Carolina's 14, 15-year-old girl getting slammed in her at her desk by a cop. And definitely has something to do with the Peachy Folder and the context. And this actually inspired an installation I did at Occidental College in Los Angeles. And what happened there was I wanted to use these school desks, just this one. I ordered the same one, and I did about 6 or 7 of them in the middle of the gallery as a seat that you can kind of check out these paintings. Like if you ever been to, like in the museum, they're sitting on a bench there, but even like galleries and things like that, there's like benches in the middle of the whole museum, and you can sit in it. That was like my bench, so kind of sculptural element like that tied into this scene. These are just going to bounce around, but this is kind of like the inspiration for the specific neon signage that you see in the next room. And this is Whittier Boulevard on the top, and then down here is Lincoln Heights. This is where I used to live. There was a travel agency next door, and then this is in Boyle Heights. So just like kind of, it's real dramatic at night. The messaging comes across. I think people are desensitized to it because there's so much of it. So at night, you just kind of passing, you just kind of expect it. But it's weird because like in Los Angeles in the daytime, you can't get anywhere like in 10, 15 minutes. At night, you can get anywhere in 10 minutes, in the car. And when I would go, I would literally wait in my studio painting so that I can go home and fight, so I don't have to deal with traffic. I'll wait till nighttime and drive, and that's how I figured this out, where I wanted to use this signage as a sculptural piece of art. I would drive down Whittier Boulevard back to my home, and at the time, this was like 2007, 8, and all these neon signs would be on. Even the business was closed, they were still advertising their messaging, whatever they're selling. So it was like kind of like this dialogue at night. It was like this like whispering almost, or like people saying things, and I wanted to remix the messaging and represent it in a gallery context or museum context, and reflect what was important for me. At this time, obviously, it's reflected in this room, so I would speak on things like that, but I would use like poetry. I would make things up and quote people, things like that. But this is the inspiration for the square rectangle kind of format of the neon. Same kind of like the color schemes, things like that I wanted to show you guys. Murals on the sides of buildings everywhere, sides of taco trucks, food trucks, things like that. It's just everything's sort of customized, just kind of like trying to advertise business or whatever they did in a creative way. So this is still close-up of the Dallas police shootings. That's kind of out of. I'll show you the whole painting later. This is the inside. I blew it up in a print format, so this is probably as big as this piece here, just tall. But that's the inside. In the Peachy folders, they would have, in the original ones, they would have useful information. So like multiplication tables and math shortcuts inside flaps would have it. And this is just the same thing. The top half, the bottom half is the ACLU kind of rights, like kind of your rights, and things like that. So I was kind of imagining this would be in the modern day Peachy Folder, like you would have like reference, for your rights and to know if your rights are being violated. The Peachy Folders that I print out and give to students now in high schools, they have 10 steps on how to, or 10 ways to de-escalate you being arrested, or how to de-escalate like a confrontation with a police officer. So that's in the inside flaps that I'm printing now in the folders that I give to students. It's a close-up of it, even though you won't be able to read it. It's another colorway. They're all referencing colors that have already been printed. As Peachy Folders used to come in different colors: red, teal, blue, yellow, like this, and then a mustard color. This is an example of a Peachy Folder that's been drawn on, that I drew on, and I presented in a gallery context. This is Tupac. The reason I folded it is because some of the folders, sometimes we would, in school I used to use them, but we would fold them up and put them in our backpacks with our papers, or fold them up and put them in our back pocket. But even just like writing on them notes, like homework's due next Friday, or like history, a homework due on Thursday. Used to write girls' phone numbers on them, all kinds of stuff, So, and then I'm limited to the palette, well, not the palette, but just the materials that I use for them. I use whiteout and pencil or pen just to draw on them for these. Some reference photos, Dapple Police, North Dakota. I use this for a painting reference that I did for a Peachy Folder. That's not here, it's in my studio right now. So there's some close-up images. I wanted to show you, I guess, just reference of where I'm getting this stuff from, so that it all kind of like falls and makes sense. But it also has to do with youth and authority content that I'm investigating with this work. Student loans, neon. You guys probably know. I know about these, but so referencing like neon signage, like bail bonds, home loans, things like that, and then just kind of changing up that to student loans. It's something that is, it's just on everybody's mind that's trying to go to school and better themselves, and it stops people from getting an education for sure. Another reference photo that I took back of someone's car, just the imagery, the floral kind of motif at the bottom. This is just vinyl. This was next to my studio. It's in Lincoln Heights. Outdated, but neon pager and a cell phone. I think I use all these materials in here, like the stucco that's on the wall here. You can't really see it, but it's stucco. The banner says for lease, the banner's at the bottom, the neon. I mean, this is where I'm all getting it from, to put together these pieces and composing them, looking at these materials and kind of like taking from them and repurposing them. Here, this is in Boyle Heights. I like the way, this was an early photo I took, I like the way the painting looked with the neon, the layering of it. And this is just examples of looking at your surroundings and kind of like paying attention, because there's a lot of opportunities to kind of take from there and expand on, I think. And these people that, this guy's painting a sign, or a woman, he's painting a family shopping or something, but he's just trying to get his money for the week or something. So he's painting, but I don't know. It just creates like with the signage everywhere, the neon. It's really nice for me. I like it, but investigate your surroundings and you'll find some interesting things for sure. I like the way this motif looks with the circle, the bougainvillea around the painting. This is in Pasadena, California. This is signage that you guys probably have here. It's just a nail salon sign. It's very, I think, old. It's just like the iconic kind of symbol to like, hey, we do nails here, and it's like a flower coming out of placed in the fingertips. And I try to collect things like this, like, this is like a visual vocabulary for me. So like it'll end up in different, maybe in a wall mural on one of the pieces or as a neon or something like that. So I'm definitely like logging things in my iPhone has like 14,000 photos on it. I'm just like constantly, and I'm like, oh, I need this in high res, and I need this, and because I want to see it, like enlarge it and see it like for real. This is like a taco store shop, open 24 hours, and it's kind of like the layering. This is kind of like where I started finding like the idea of the floral and the neon kind of coming together in some of the presentations that I do. With the pieces next here, but just kind of the layering of the floral on top of the neon, and finding those kind of layerings and juxtapositions in in your setting, and where you're eating at, and where you're hanging out at. And I always like observing things like that and walking around, and typically sometimes during the day, most of it's at night. So that's kind of where that branched out into this, and this is like a idea of 3 different versions of one thing and 3 different executions. So it's like a still life of roses, but in 3 different executions, and that was kind of the idea behind it, and then mixing that in with kind of the storefront signage, the store surfaces, the graffiti that's been buffed. So here on the right, I have like a flower mural that maybe it's a advertisement for a flower shop on the side of a wall, and the neon in the middle is, or the left side is just like the storefront signage neon for the flower shop, and then there's like memorial flowers around there. These are kind of like dreamlike kind of paintings that I put together. They're kind of 4 to 5 different places combined into one. So they're kind of more like landscape paintings for me. And this is kind of like the first of the collection of them. Obviously it's next door, but we showed it a few times in Los Angeles. It's a close-up of it. You have it next door, so you don't really need to see that. Just friends, I don't know how to say it. Still lifes, painting still lifes. I have different types of friends from different walks of lives. I've wanted to paint a gun still life because I think, it was like an idea about like painting guns and like how America loves their guns. And my friend really loved his guns, and he brought them all over just for a still life photo shoot, and that's what it is. I'm just showing you this stuff because it's what I take from, or like I'm using in terms of like fuel for the pieces. I based the painting off the photo I took. This is in Boyle Heights, around the corner from my friend's house. So I took this maybe like 3 years ago, and I like the signage and the painting on the side, and I also like the textures that were on top. Obviously, can't really see it, but there's like a stucco texture on top, and I just like the tonality of it, and then like the hand lettering on the top. I turned it into a painting, and it's also a good way to document in terms of like turning it into a painting. This place doesn't exist there anymore. A lot of the places in Los Angeles are changing. A lot of homes are being kind of like, like people are getting, places are getting gentrified and businesses are coming in. Galleries, or there's a place, this is Boyle Heights, but this is the place where the galleries are coming in and the community doesn't like it, and they're actually fighting back. Because it happened in the arts district of Los Angeles, where I was having my studio for a long time, and I didn't have a problem with that because there was no families involved. It was just a bunch of artists. I kind of like, hey, this is my studio, and it was a giant warehouse. And now it's kind of moved east more, so it's now affecting families. And that coffee shop that you would find in the artist district in Los Angeles is now moving across the bridge, and it doesn't, and then the gallery moved next door, and that doesn't really necessarily have anything to do with the community, so they don't like it. So they're fighting back, but a lot of these places are disappearing because, people are moving in, and rents, changing, things like that. So in my own way, I like to document that in paintings, photos, even if it's in an abstract way, and a lot of that, the pieces next door are a way of doing that, getting the tarps and tile and stucco and copying a pattern that I see on the side of a building, things like that. Sorry, this is kind of out of whack. Inspiration, or not inspiration, this is the first print that I did. The teal one was the second one. It was a silk screen, 2005. Blue one. And this was the first of, I think, of the printed folders here. It's also on display at California African American Museum. This is the one that I was telling with Walter Scott and Eric Gardner in it. And this is the first one I painted in 2015, I believe. And I think I did it twice. This is the second time I did it. Well, I did it twice on the painting, the surface, and I painted it out because I was getting used to painting them this big, and I wanted it to be like painterly, but not too tight, I guess. This piece here you can see next door too, but in the print format. These are all the prints in the next room are all based on the paintings that I did. So I painted these first. I think I did 5 at the beginning. I'm up to 23 now, but I did the first 5 and I got them shot, and then I turned them into folders as prints, and those folders were supposed to act as prints, as multiples for this, but then I was like, oh, I should hand these out. Like I should actually, because they're you can use them. So that's where I'm at now. That's where I'll do print runs of 1,000, 1,500 folders, and then I'll go to like local schools. Like I'll be in Harlem next week, so I'll just like Google the closest school, or I'll ask like some people like where I should go hit, and I'll just go with a backpack and then go after school and just hand folders out. Also, Chicago, I'll be next week in Chicago and San Francisco. So anyway, this is, I think, the 3rd one that I did, and they're all based on the old colors of the Peachy folders. This is next door, then they came for me, neon. It's an installation at Charlie James. This was it was January. God. Me and Amy were talking, and it's just this feels like 2 years ago. Like it's just been like this whole year has just been so much to talk about. Charlie he has a space in Chinatown. This is the gallery that I show with in Los Angeles. I did the top half with paintings and some neon, the Peachy Folder work, but he had this bottom room that was like very, people are like, they don't really like, oh, okay, I got the bottom room, but I liked it because you could just control the lighting and stuff, and I figured I'd just cut all the lights off and just do like this neon type of installation. How like I would view it at night, like if it was on the street or something. It's a close-up of the neon, playing with ideas of neon signage blinking off and on, not working, broken neon. So it's just kind of like United is not working, but the rest of it is on. It's a bulletproof vest varsity jacket that I did a couple years ago. This is when I maybe did like the first Peachy Folder. It was kind of inspired by that kind of same kind of idea of like school, youth, and authority, and young people being shot, by authority figures and violence in America, things like that. I'm just trying to show you other work that I've kind of. This is the last summer. This was, I think, 1 week's worth of violence. So Philando Castro, Pedro, the shooting in the South, the Dallas shootings, is all span of 1 week in July of last year. So I did the painting as big as the one that's next door. It's gold and copper paint. It doesn't really show up here on the photo, but yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's just like these paintings happen pretty quick because it's like there's so much going on and there's these stories coming out and photos and video. So you kind of just my reaction is to be present and react to them. And I start as soon as like I see it enough, and figure out what I want to do. There's a close up. Sorry, another crop of that. I do like different, with the Peachy Folder work that you see in here is the paintings, but there's also two on this side where I'm actually drawing on Peachy Folder, so I'll find them. My brother actually finds them for me on eBay or OfferUp. Like, people have these things still, so he'll find them and buy them for me, and I just have like a thick stack at home, and I just draw on them when I get an idea. Stuff that I would do like in high school, but like a new version of it, like a better, like, more sophisticated rendered version of what I would have probably done in high school. Music that I was listening to in high school, stuff like that. This is another version of the one that's next door. It's like part 2. Using the same materials, stuff like that. Again, like the neon signage that you might see in a flower shop somewhere, mixed with color of the wall kind of stucco piece. This one is the color of the home that I grew up in. So I take different like color. That's what kind of informs the work, the color of the pieces. So when I'm around looking at the landscape, it's people's homes, people's businesses, colors of homes that I used to go to when I was, a teenager, my friends' homes, things like that. It's an installation shot at Charlie James Gallery. And you could see in the middle there, it's like one of the photo that I showed you, it's the painting of the photo. It's a close-up. See all that. Again, playing with neon that's not working, things aren't working. Yeah. So. I was showing you Dapple, kind of the K9s and people fighting over there in North Dakota. This is the piece that I was working on, the reference photo for that, and Philandro in the middle, Paul O'Neill. It's weird too, like a lot of these portraits that I paint, I spend time with them, but then also like the families will email me and ask me for prints of the piece, and I haven't got any hate mail yet. So I mean, they're just like, keep on doing it. That's great, and but it's interesting. Like they'll send me like emails, pieces of mail, things like that. I mean, I think even one of the family members was sending me like just like releasing and venting about the whole case. His son was like 17 years old, was shot by an off-duty cop, and he's like spending money just trying to figure out, or paying for ballistics, and trying to clear his son's name. Sending me PDFs of ballistic reports and things. It's interesting. This is next door, obviously. Yeah. Sometimes I'll take different, phrases from poetry, and in that case it was D'Angelo, so I used that. The first image that I showed you was the images of the bears and like the things for sale at Valentine's Day. This is a piece that I did that I don't know where it's at right now. I think it's in my studio somewhere, but it's made of it's a sculpture. I literally took that photo and then I bought a bear and then created this sculpture from it. So I did a mold, and the basket was hard. I created the flowers down there. I just created one, and then we multiplied them when we poured the metal, and then just welded them on. This is my first time using, you know, I had help obviously, but the bear, we just hardened the fur on there, like with a rubberizing kind of material, and we just cast it from there. Actually, the heart is made out of clay too, but we casted that, you know, from Chavant. And everything else is just literally bought from that stand there. And the plastic is hard plastic. It's like it's something. It's the thinnest sheet of acrylic Plex plastic you can buy, and we heated it up and melted it and twisted it at top. But it's all made from guns, like handguns. So melted down handguns. It's a sculptural piece instead of bronze or, you know, any type of precious metal. I'm, you know, trying to use materials that are important in today's society, I guess. And the bow is made from a strap that you find on a water heater. And my friend helped me make that, and then it's painted with automotive paint. So everything's pretty hard. It's like a sculpture, new sculpture, I guess. I try to find new ways of doing, you know, following art history, but doing it to reflects the times that we're living in today. Just a close-up. Gallery. It's an older piece, like 2012 or 13. Bullets. It's a billboard that I did. It was inspired. This neon was inspired by Chris Rock, the stand-up comedian. He was talking about guns and how it's not really the guns that are the problem. It's the bullets. They're so easy to get. Like they should be like $15,000 a piece. So if like you really wanted to kill someone, you know, you would spend a fortune on it. Next door. This is an interesting project that I did. My friend's family owned a grocery store, and I was doing work, like still life work, like that was reflecting foods that we're consuming today. And I thought it would be cool or interesting to place it instead of doing a show, like do a one-day thing where you're placing back these pieces and, you know, back into the context of what's inspiring them. So I did I did all this work before I even knew that I was going to do this, but I had all this work and I was like, oh, I want to do this. So I hit up my friend, and I didn't think he would be able to do it, and he just was like, yeah, let's do it, you know, like I'm not even until my parents, or, you know, he's an older guy, but it's a pretty big grocery store, you know. They just sold the chain for some good money, but it's predominantly Latino communities in Los Angeles, and it's called Tapatio Markets. It's now nothing because I think their competitor bought it, so it's like Super A Foods or something now. So these are just texture shots. This is a painting that I did of the Shasta Miss Twist or Tiki Punch. Texture shots. That's the market. Things I would find in different areas of the market I would place with the sculpture. Texture shots. The 40-ounce neon in the background, placed in the liquor section. This is the first cake that I did was Tupac. There's a better shot of it. Money orders everything. Neon next to the ATM and was it lottery machine or whatever, and then a coin changing machine. So it was interesting because people were shopping and doing their thing, and they didn't really, I mean, some would, but they didn't really know that there was art pieces installed into their daily market shopping routine, and they didn't really care for them. So it was nice a lot of photographers went and got these shots of people just kind of, you know, going about their business. But then there was a lot of the art crowd that came, and it was kind of like this weird juxtaposition of people that were actually looking for art, and then people that were just like, "What are you doing here? Like, get out of here!" Messing. Texture. This is all texture shots. This neon I did, and then I placed it in. They had like a restaurant section where they would they would have like meat, tacos, and all this stuff. So put it in there. I did like a bread still life with neon. I put it in the bread section, Tupac Cake with the other cakes. I just trying to show you past work and kind of where I was and to where I am now. There's a Tupac Cake in the fridge. Very nerve-wracking too, because I was really tired after this. Me and my brother installed this whole thing in one, like 4 hours, 5 hours, and it's crazy because, you know, it's a lot of extension cords and plugging in, and not necessarily, you know, like in the soda section, it's not like there's a plug there just for you, like, oh yeah, plug in like neons or whatever. So we gotta like throw like extension cords, bring them over here, plug them in. So it was a fun experience, and but I was really tired after. But this stuff was just sitting there, you know. So anyone could have like really just come in and like, what's that? And then like open, you know. And I was like worried about that, so I kind of woke up from like a 3-hour nap, and I'm like, I should probably go over there and see if everything. It's a close-up of the still life of bread, neon break bread. So I'm just trying to show like inspiration, kind of showing, putting it back where it's inspired from. Also just, you know, like this piece is inspired by like bakeries and cake shops in Los Angeles. You see that one that's next door. Same like inspiration, like for water vessel made from ceramics. This one was across the street from Men's Central Jail in Los Angeles. I'll do stuff like that too, like rent generators and like take photos, different places, just to activate the piece, so the piece activates the space. This one was about low-level felonies being dropped to misdemeanors because, you know, like you would get put in jail for something like a minor infraction, and or a low-level felony was like a minor. It felt like a misdemeanor. So like a lot of people, it was overcrowded at this time. It was like 3 years ago. The jails were overcrowded. It's an older piece. A lot of the pieces in the neon pieces in Los Angeles that inform the work, you know, it's multicultural and melting pot. LA is, and so a lot of the businesses in the different pockets of LA advertise, and you know, the mom and pop shops, but they'll have a community that's, you know, Chinese or Vietnamese or like a Mexican community, Salvadoran community, you know, so signs in Spanish, Chinese condensed, things like that. I use all of it, and I'm doing a show in a museum in December in Los Angeles, and I'm gonna do it based on that kind of idea. I think this was one of the first kind of stucco pieces that I did with like the neon, and it was more about the painting. It was a still life of liquor store items. And this is kind of like how it evolved. This is like the first version of what you're seeing over here. So security bars, neon, and the flowers were faux flowers. They're like fake flowers that you find in LA, the flower district, or the fake flower district. Installation at Occidental College. This is where I was telling you the desks in the middle serving as seats to view the work. So the folders you're seeing prints of next door, this is how big they are. They're pretty big in terms of being paintings. I allowed students and people that attended the show to write on messages on the desks. And they, I would leave folders and like things like that. So early sculpture that I did, ceramic, neon, still life. Second version of the stucco work. I was thinking more like it was like, a bas relief sculpture, but I was doing like precious things to people that live in the United States, or things that made people safe. And it was guns, security bars, things. It's all made out of ceramic. The Tupac Cake. So this is the first Tupac Cake that I did, and I think I'm like 5 or 6. I forget it's next door. Women that have been impacted by police brutality. Dapple. That's the painting of the photo that I showed you the other day. I used different, I was using the stucco in some of the pieces here in terms of like a wall surface, but I end up, when I paint like surfaces like this, I mix stucco into this paint and paint like onto the, you know what I mean, to create like a textural kind of experience, the painting. More inspiration, photography, or just stuff that I see when I'm driving or like walking around. So this is kind of the idea with the memorial type of flowers just being next to a wall or on the wall or something like that. So folders. Next door, you can see that one next door. This is the Occidental show. I had a projection also just to show the images where I'm getting them from. So, sometimes I'll use still photography as paintings, or for reference photos, but then I'll also like pause a video and paint from there. So that's all reference. So view. Mexico City Olympics. That's his vest with the neon. This is the Kendrick Lamar cake. Still life ceramic neon. This is like kind of like the first version of the neon that I kind of did with in a gallery setting. It was kind of set up like this because this is kind of how I view it in the windows. Like it's kind of like sporadic. I designed it a little bit more so it's like, but you'll see them, sometimes I'll post them on Instagram, or in Los Angeles, I'll just have them like top to bottom in the window, just like covering the whole window. You're just like, how can I even look inside? But it's things that are blinking and, cash your check now, or, things like that. It's kind of like this overstimulated kind of wall of neon. It's next door. So another, same size as the one that's next door, just another version of it. So Rodney King riots painting. I did this piece last year. Then UCLA wanted to use it for a folder, so they saw what I was doing, and UCLA was like, "Oh, we want to do one for our students and kind of speak on the uprising, 25 years of the uprising." So I turned the purple in the print to their UCLA blue, and then it was already yellow. So we handed out maybe almost 2,000 of those folders to students. This is the second piece that I did painting, Peachy Folder, Texas school, the Texas pool arrests. And like I said before, I've done maybe like 23 paintings like this, so it's just like different things that I see, and then I kind of like log them in or I'll have on my phone just, images that I've used for paintings or that I'm going to use, and I'll paint from there. The portrait of my mother and my father with neon. Did that like 7 years ago. Saw that one. Next door. That's the print version, or the painting of the print. That's Jonathan right there. That's a portrait of him on the top. And that's him. I think we'll stop there. Is there